So a little while ago I was approached by a company who I had heard of, and they sort of make middle of the road budget tents. And they asked me if I wanted to review one of their tents, and I wasn't really that keen. But every tent manufacturer's got to start out somewhere, and you either invest a huge amount of money into a high-spec, high-end tent, or you start on the lower-end ones and build your way up. But they sent me a link to a tent, which on paper looked really good, and it did pique my interest. And I looked into the specifications of it, and it is the spec of a considerably higher end tent manufacturer in comparison to what they normally do. Now, I did some online research, could find nothing about the tent as in YouTube videos or anything apart from one that was done in the DAC wind test tunnel. Now, this tent withstood winds up to 42 miles an hour. It was still standing, so it possibly could go higher if it's pitched correctly and the wind's coming from the right angle. Now, DAC will only wind test tents that have got DAC poles in them, and DAC will only deal with manufacturers who hit a certain criteria for their tents, because the tent could fold totally because of the materials as opposed to the poles. So they want to ensure that their product isn't made to look bad. So having the confidence that DAC have got in the tent makes me think, well, this could be pretty good. And this tent is almost identical to the Nemo Hornet Osmo in almost every way. It outdoes it in some, and in one side maybe slightly less, but it's also about half the price. I weighed this tent on my scales. The tent and the poles come in at 985 grams. I did it without the pegs because I'll always use my own pegs, but it does come with DAC aluminium pegs as well, should you want to use them. With the pegs it was about 1.1 kilos, but 895 for a one-person tent. With the poles, it's pretty low. There's also an option for a footprint, and that weighs, I think, about 115 grams. So I come out today to just pitch this tent, show you what it's like. I'm not sleeping in it tonight, but I bought a sleep pad, and so I'll show you what it's like with the sleep pad inside. It is a one-person tent, 2 vestibules, storage vestibule, and then one to cook in and give you cover. But also the vestibule is adjustable. I've never seen this on a tent before. So as always, I have separated the poles from the bag. So this is the tent, the inner and the outer, and then the poles are here. As you can see, they are DAC marked. Now the company is called Blackdeer, and the tent is called the Nova Ultralight one-person tent. So as I said before, the specifications are really, really good on this tent for a company like Blackdeer, who tend to be, let's say, more your sort of middle of the road type of tents. Even little things like the tent bag, instead of having a string on there that you've got to tie up, it's just got a little flap. So you roll it over and then your poles come out. The poles also have the Jake's foot attachment. So these are DAC NFL 8.7mm diameter poles with the Jake's foot clips. And also, because of the Jake's foot clip that's on the tent, the outer has a really good hook system that goes onto it. Now, I know I've said before, I'm not a lover of inner pitch first tents. Realistically, this is a 3-season tent, but one that can cope with some high winds if you pitch it right. And I'll show you a clip of the videos now of this tent hitting 42 miles an hour in wind on the DAC tunnel, and also of different pitching angles, because they pitched it at the other end and at the side, and obviously it didn't survive those angles. So you do have to pitch this tent correctly to get the best out of it. Now the wind may change, so that may cause an issue depending upon where you are pitched, but it does go to show how strong this is for an incredibly lightweight setup. As with the pole bag, the pegs come in a DAC bag, again a folding top, and you get these DAC aluminium pegs. Now, although I like these, I can't believe they've got a top on them that doesn't actually have a piece of string on it. So that means you can't pull it out, you've got to tie bits of string on it. I don't know why tent manufacturers do that, but I'm not going to be using these, I'm going to be using my normal pegs. And this is the footprint, which in the bag, I weighed it and it's 181 grams. So you could do without it. But the specification on this in comparison to the Nemo is actually better on the materials as well. Now, I've said this before, a lot of people get obsessed with hydrostatic head on tents, and a lot of people say it's got to be a minimum of 2,000 millimeters or 3,000 millimeters. 2,000 is more than enough, 1,500 is more than enough. But to compare this tent to the Nemo, it's quite unusual because of their specifications. So the Nemo has a 15D nylon ripstop interior. The Rainfly doesn't say what D it is, but says it's a Ripstop Osmo 1200mm hydrostatic head. The Blackdeer tent has a 15D Rainfly, but it is 400T fine grid silk fabric, single-sided silicon coated with a hydrostatic head of 2000 millimeters. So it's already 800 millimeters higher hydrostatic head than the Nemo. The floor of this tent is the Blackdeer is 20D 380T ripstop, and again it's 2000 millimeter hydrostatic head. The Nemo Osmo has a 1500 millimeter hydrostatic head floor with an Osmo ripstop nylon. Again, don't know what denier that is. Weight wise they are pretty much exactly the same. The Blackdeer comes in at 215 pounds plus $12 shipping to the UK, so depending upon where you are, so about another 9 or 10 quid, so it's pretty cheap. You also don't have the import fees when it comes from China, whereas the Nemo is about £310 plus VAT plus import duty plus delivery. So you're probably going to be looking at way over £400 for the equivalent Nemo, which is an incredibly similar tent and the nearest I can find and the closest I can find in comparison to the Blackdeer. I'm going to put this up, I'll do it in, I'll say real time, I'll probably speed up some of it, but I'm going to use the footprint just to show you what it's like when I'm inside, and therefore you can utilise that footprint in the storage area as well. Now I'll put this up indoors in the house, just to see if there's any weird things that I need to know. It's pretty straightforward. But I've not used the footprint, so I'll pick this out first. So the footprint is pretty much the same size and shape as a Lanshan 1 footprint. So it has the pointy triangle section at the rear, and I'm hoping that we can use the same pegs for the outer, or the inner sheet rather. I've packed this with the inner to come out first because it's an inner pitch fast tent, funnily enough. So yeah, the pegs match for the footprint and the inner, which is good news. With the poles you do get about 20 of these straps. I've taken them off and just used one. It's too many. You also get a pole sleeve fix kit. So these clip nicely into the Jake's foot attachment, and then just snap the inner to the poles like you would do on any other tent. So these bars, again, I've got the Jake's foot clip on them, so it's got a really nice snap lock system that holds it in place really well. I don't know if you're supposed to put the bars over the top or underneath, but I prefer as much tension as you can get, which will also result in more headroom. So as it stands now, you've got 2 zips to open the door. That's a nice generous door, so there's one separate one for the top and a separate one for the bottom. And then you have your usual toggle and loop system, which ties it up right out of the way. It's pretty snug. Already got a fly inside. So height wise, I'm not on my mat. My hair is close to it. I believe it's 99 centimetres internal height, but I haven't got a mat on there. But once you're sitting up on the mat, you tend to crush it down a bit anyway. But it's enough space. There is a little loop here and one on that side, so you could either hang a line across here or just use it for tying your lantern onto. There's also a pocket in the back here which is suspended, and you can remove that if you like, and then you can just hang other gear inside. On the other side here, you have another door. You can chuck a gear, put it out of the vestibule, which obviously will come into play when I've got a fly on. Speaking of flies, I'll pop the fly on, show you what that's like. It's quite nice as you've got 2 clips at one end and one at the other, so it's easy to know which is the right one to put on. Even though I've got it inside out. And these just clip onto the Jake's foot clips, and then inside, like a lot of these tents, you have Velcro to attach to the poles. So the Jake's hook clips are only at the single end, the other end goes onto the same pegs that you use for the footprint and the inner. And then the front, God, this ground is solid. Goes out like so, but as I said before, it's a bit different from what you'd normally see. At one end you have an air vent, and this actually, rather than velcros, it velcros shut, but it actually hooks and clips onto there, so there's no velcro to hold it. So velcro is closed, locks open, which is a really, really good idea. Clever little thing. So this is it all set up, fully guyed out, nice and solid. I haven't attached all of the velcro parts to the inside because I'm just showing it to you. But you've got a guy line here and a guy line there. The vestibule on this side, you have a tensioning guy. This should be lower, but I can't get my pegs in any lower than that. And then you've got another guy line there and another one there. There's plenty of scalloped edges for ventilation, so although you've only got one air vent at the other end, the interior is complete mesh, so it will blow through and keep the air flowing and hopefully reduce condensation. But it's got a little trick up the sleeve, I'll show you. So in addition to being able to just roll up your vestibule completely, or you could put a trekking pole on here and give yourself a nice bit of coverage in the wind and rain. What you can do is, if you only unzip it that far on both sides, you can actually roll this bottom half up, so you can toggle it up so it's just that high and get plenty of ventilation through there. The rain is not going to hit you or get anywhere near you, and all your gear can be in the vestibule. I think that's a pretty cool little idea. It just gives you two options, particularly if the weather changes and it's not as bad and you just want to have a lot of ventilation. You could of course take the fly off of this completely and just have it as mesh and stargazing, but if it is a possibility of a little bit of bad weather, a little bit of rain, then you can just have that door partially down and just give you a good airflow through, but still have protection from the elements. And obviously with the door fully open, you can see how much space you've got now and ventilation, or just to look out. So dimensions on the inside, it is 220 centimeters long, 100 centimeters high and 70 centimeters wide. So, you know, my hat just about hits the ceiling, but realistically that's me pushing up, sitting on my mat, absolutely fine. 220 is normally too short for me, but this has got very vertical walls, so hopefully I'll fit. My God, I'm sweating. It is really humid today. So, I haven't got a pillow, but if I lift my head up, I'm not touching the end. So this is me sort of as far as back as I can go on my mat. Feels fine. My feet, they are just about brushing. Just. You know, if I have a quilt on or a sleeping bag, it's going to be touching the mesh. So I could get condensation from the outside in it. But then again, I also have a footbox cover from 3FUL that I'd normally use in situations like that. But there is a fair bit of space between the inner and the outer. And I'm thinking with the ventilation that there is on this tent, I don't really think you're going to get much condensation inside here. The ventilation options are huge, you know, from the bottom part of the door opening to having it fully open, it's still fairly well protected. So to give you an indication of vestibule space, there's my size 11s there, and it's about 2 of those deep, so roughly 2 foot. So you've got plenty of space here, covered in with ventilation underneath to cooking. You can just leave this bottom section open to look out from, which I think is a really cool idea. And it is really quite nice. I'm getting a nice fresh breeze underneath here, so you could literally just spend all night long with that section, bottom section open. You've got visibility out. The bathtub is about 4 inches high, so laying here I can see directly out underneath the fly, and that's quite nice. And with the fly fully down, you can see the amount of space that you've got. That's absolutely tons. You've probably got, well, I'll say at least 60 centimeters, but it is the same all the way down so you've got a full length of the tent of storage, as well as your storage this side. I've got a small bag in here, 30 litre backpack. Realistically, I'd say boots or a few bits and pieces down here, and then your main gear is going to be out here in this huge vestibule. So my thoughts on this tent. Personally, I think for the price, it's a really, really good specification tent. I mean, it is a major Budget Nemo Hornet 10. So for a design that is very similar, but with a bit more space, I think slightly better specification, as in the hydrostatic head, the materials as well. I think they're all good, but I think comparison-wise, you're not paying the import tax and the VAT, this works out a major bargain. The only thing I found I don't like is the toggles. So I found that when you roll this up, the toggle is really hard to get into this loop, and in particular this one, which is a lot smaller. Okay, it's smaller because there's less material, but it is extremely tight. But it's doable, it's not the end of the world. So the Blackdeer Nova Ultralight one-person tent. What's your thoughts? Tell me below, do you think this is something that you would buy? Do you think it's suitable for UK weather? Me personally, I think it's great for summer use because although we still get some rain, we don't get too much, but what we do get is a lot of wind. So to have a nice airy tent that can take some decent winds, I think is a bit of a winner. As always, if you want to buy this tent, I will put a link in the description below. Anyway, as always, if you enjoyed the video, hit thumbs up, and if you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all on the next one.